Some knowledge isn't meant for human eyes. Tonight, we're diving into the shadows. 3 chilling tales of real occult rituals, cursed objects, and forbidden symbols. Every story you're about to hear hides a truth people were never supposed to discover. Yet they did, and it changed them forever. Before we begin, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and if you're brave enough, stay until the end. But remember, once you hear these stories, you can't unhear them. If you survive until the last word, prove it. Subscribe and join the circle. The darkness welcomes you. Some pages are never meant to be read. Some words should never be spoken. This is the true story of a man who ignored both warnings and paid the price. It started in Prague. Dylan, an American student on a year abroad, had a fascination with rare books. He'd visit antique bookshops tucked in alleyways, collecting dusty grimoires and forgotten folklore. But one cold October evening, he stumbled into a tiny store that wasn't on any map. The sign above the door read, "Libri Obscuri, only for the truly curious." Inside, there was only one book on display, leather-bound, no title, a single Latin phrase carved into the cover, "Qui legit, patibit." He who reads shall be opened. The old shopkeeper warned, "It's not for reading, it's for containment." Dylan laughed it off and bought the book. Big mistake. That night, Dylan opened the book in his dorm. Most pages were blank, until he found a single page that seemed to shift, as if the ink breathed. It wasn't printed, it was growing. The page had strange symbols, circles within circles, and a sentence scrawled at the top. "Do not speak these words aloud." Of course, Dylan did exactly that. The moment he spoke the final syllable, his room went dead silent, unnaturally silent. The air grew heavy. The shadows in the corners of the room began to stretch. Then came the voice. Not his own, not human. "Now you belong to me." Over the next few days, Dylan became a ghost of himself. He heard whispers coming from behind the walls. His reflection lagged behind his movements in mirrors. Books in the library rearranged themselves to form words. Read again. Finish the ritual. He tried to burn the book. It wouldn't burn. He threw it into the river. It returned to his desk the next morning, dry. He reached out to a folklore professor who recognized the symbol on the cursed page. The professor's face turned white. "That's from the Occult manuscript, a book used by a forgotten cult that believed speaking those words called something from outside our world, something hungry." That night, the professor was found dead in his office. The only clue, a torn page from the book, shoved into his mouth. Dylan vanished the next day. Police found his apartment empty, except for one thing, the book, now open to a new page, written in his handwriting. It read, "Do not read aloud, especially not the second page." The room smelled of burnt ozone. His phone, still recording, captured one final whisper. "Page 2 is listening now. Some books are cursed, but some are alive. And once you speak their language, they remember your voice forever." They say most online rituals are fake, games for thrill seekers. But what if one of them actually worked? This is the story of a man who pushed too far, and opened a door he could never close. Zach was a skeptic, an amateur YouTuber focused on debunking the supernatural. His goal? Try real occult rituals and prove they were fake. But one night, while scrolling through a dark web forum, he found something different. A post titled, "Do Not Attempt the Mirror Veil Ritual." The post had no comments, no likes, and was buried deep in an archive. It claimed the ritual allowed you to see through the veil, to catch a glimpse of the other side. Zach couldn't resist. He filmed everything. The steps were simple. One mirror, one candle, one phrase, spoken 3 times at 3:33 a.m. Zach set up his room just like the instructions said. At exactly 3:33, he looked into the mirror and repeated the phrase, "Let the veil fall, and let the watcher see me." Nothing happened at first, just silence. But then, the candle flickered violently. His reflection smiled, but he didn't. He stumbled back, thinking it was a trick of the light, but his reflection stayed still, smiling. Then the mirror cracked. Just slightly, but enough. Zach turned off the camera, shaken. He wouldn't upload the footage. Not yet. That night, Zach couldn't sleep. There were footsteps outside his bedroom door, cold drafts with no source, and whispers in a language he didn't understand. But the worst part? The mirror. He covered it with a sheet, but every morning, the sheet was on the floor, and the crack in the glass had grown wider. In one video diary, he said, "It's not just watching me anymore. I think it's copying me." Zach's final video was never uploaded, but a friend found the file on his hard drive and leaked it online. It showed Zach walking up to the mirror again. He looked pale, sleep-deprived. He whispered, "If you're in there, what do you want from me?" The mirror didn't answer, but Zach's reflection did. It leaned forward, smiled, and whispered back, "To take your place." The video ended with Zach screaming, not from fear, but rage, as if he realized it was already too late. Zach was never found. His apartment was locked from the inside. The only thing left behind was the mirror. But now, it didn't reflect anything at all. Just darkness. And if you listened closely, breathing. They say every sigil has a price, a hidden cost, written not in ink, but in blood. This is the story of a man who drew one without knowing the debt he'd have to pay. Elias Voss was a collector of the strange and forbidden. Rare books, cursed artifacts, ritual tools once owned by people whispered about in history. At a flea market, hidden in a box of worthless papers, he found an unfamiliar parchment, yellowed, brittle, with a single crimson sigil burned into its center. A note was attached. "Do not trace. Do not feed." Elias thought it was superstition. That night in his study, he carefully copied the sigil into his leather-bound notebook, using his own fountain pen. But as the ink dried, the lines of the sigil moved, rearranging themselves like veins searching for a heart. Elias began hearing knocks in patterns of 3. His dreams turned violent, blood-red skies, chanting in a language he didn't know, and shadows watching from the edges of his vision. One morning, he found his notebook open to the sigil, but the page was damp, not with ink, with blood. Fresh, warm, On the desk, someone or something had written, "One drop was enough. Now give more." Terrified but drawn deeper, Elias searched the parchment for clues. In faint, almost invisible handwriting, he uncovered the ritual's promise. "Call, and you shall be answered. Offer, and you shall be kept." That night, he tried to destroy the sigil. Fire wouldn't burn it. Water wouldn't smear it. The knocks grew louder. From 3 to 4 to a constant pounding. Then, in a moment of desperation, Elias whispered, "What do you want?" The pounding stopped. A voice answered from inside his head. "Blood remembers blood. Yours will open the way." At 3:15 a.m., Elias woke to find the sigil glowing on his study wall, huge, pulsing like an open wound. The room stank of iron and rot. Hands, black, skeletal, reached through the sigil, clawing the air. Elias screamed and ran, but every door in his house led back to the study. The voice returned, louder. "You traced me. You fed me. Now I will feed." The last thing Elias's neighbors heard was the sound of wood splintering, and then silence. When the police entered Elias's home, the study walls were bare. No sigil, no parchment, no Elias. But in his leather notebook, on the page where he once drew the sigil, there was now a perfect outline of a human handprint, still wet with blood. And below it, fresh handwriting. One more drop.